From the premises, it can be shown that separate substances do not receive intellectual knowledge of sensible things, for sensible things, according to their nature, are apprehended by sense, just as intelligible things are by understanding. Every cognitive substance, therefore, receiving knowledge from sensibles, has sensitive knowledge, and consequently has a naturally united body, since sensitive knowledge cannot exist without a corporeal organ. But separate substances do not have bodies naturally united to themselves, as was shown above. Therefore, they do not derive intellectual knowledge from sensible things. Further, a higher power must be a higher object. Now, the intellectual power of a separate substance is higher than the intellectual power of the human soul, since the intellect of the human soul is the lowest in the order of intellects, as is clear from the foregoing. Now, the object of the understanding of the human soul is a phantasm, as was said above, which is higher in the order of objects than the sensible thing existing outside the soul, as appears from the order of the cognitive virtues. Therefore, the object of a separate substance cannot be a thing existing outside the soul so as to receive knowledge directly from it, nor a phantom. It is therefore left that the object of the understanding of the separated substance is something deeper than phantasm. Now, there is nothing higher in phantasm in the order of knowable objects than that which is actually intelligible. Still, the second order of understandings is the order of intelligibles. But those things which are intelligible in themselves are superior in the order of intelligibles to those which are not intelligible except because we make them intelligible. All intelligible things received by the sensible must be of this kind, for the sensible are not intelligible in themselves, but the intelligibles of this kind are what our understanding understands. Therefore, the understanding of a separate substance, since it is superior to our understanding, does not understand intelligibles received from the sensible, but what is actually intelligible in itself. Further, the mode of proper operation of a thing corresponds proportionally to the mode of its substance and nature, but the separate substance is the intellect existing by itself, not in any body. Therefore, his intellectual operation will be of intelligibles which are not grounded in any body. But all intelligibles received by the sensible are in some way grounded in some bodies, just as our intelligibles are in phantasms, which are in corporeal organs. Separated substances, therefore, do not receive knowledge from the senses. Still, as first matter is the lowest in the order of sensible things, and by this means it is only in power to all sensible forms. Thus, the possible intellect existing lowest in the order of intelligibles is in power over all intelligibles, as is clear from the foregoing. But those things which are in the order of sensibles above primary matter have in fact their own form, by which they're constituted into sensible being. Separate substances, therefore, which are in the order of intelligibles above the possible human intellect, are actually in being intelligible, for the intellect, receiving knowledge from sensibles, is not actually in being intelligible, but in potentiality. A separate substance, therefore, receives no knowledge from the sensible. Still, the perfection of the higher nature does not depend on the lower nature, but the perfection of a separate substance, since it is intellectual, is in understanding. Therefore, understanding them does not depend on sensible things, so that it receives knowledge from them. Now it is clear from this that there is no active and possible understanding in separate substances, except perhaps equivocally. For the possible and the active understanding are found in the intellectual soul, because it receives intellectual knowledge from the sensibles. For it is the active intellect which makes the species received by the sensibles to be actually intelligible. But the possible intellect is that which has the power to know all the forms of the sensible. Therefore, since separate substances do not receive knowledge from the sensible, there is no active and possible understanding in them. Hence, also Aristotle, in De Anima, introducing the possible and active intellect, says that they must be placed in the soul. Likewise, it is clear from them that local distance cannot prevent the knowledge of a separate substance. For local distance is per se compared to the sense, but not to the understanding except by accident, inasmuch as it receives from the sense. For sensible things move the sense according to a determined distance, but intelligible things actually, insofar as they move the intellect, are not in place, since they are separated from corporeal matter. Therefore, since separate substances do not receive intellectual knowledge from the sensible, spatial distance does not affect their knowledge. It is also clear that time is not mixed with their intellectual activity. For just as intelligible things are actually without place, so also they are without time. For time follows local motion. Hence he measures only those things which are in some way in place. And therefore, the understanding of separate substances is above time. But time is adjacent to our intellectual operation, from the fact that we receive knowledge from phantasms, which refer to a determined time. And hence it is that in composition and division, our understanding always adds the past or future time, but not in understanding what is what. For he understands what there is by abstracting the intelligible from the conditions of the sensible. Hence, according to that operation, he comprehends the intelligible neither under time nor under any condition of sensible things.